Welcome to this spotlight. Today I have Vivek, Mehta, and Anisa Aven, co-founders of LeanDEI. And you are combining cutting-edge technology with real-life coaching to create a truly diverse and inclusive culture. This is my interpretation. But tell me really more about LeanDEI.
That's exactly right. So LeanDEI is an end-to-end solution for large enterprises to build inclusive organizations. We combine network analysis, conversational AI, and expert coaching to deliver diverse hiring, team building, and decision-making kind of at all levels of an organization.
Okay, so if I'm a newcomer to the world of technology, what does all that what did you just said mean?
Yep, I threw a lot of buzzwords at you. So we'll break it down. So LeanDEI is built on a three-step iterative process. The first part of that process is our identify phase, where we use a organizational network analysis to identify unconscious biases that are present in an organization, the employees who are impacted by them, and the key people leaders that can actually make a difference. So to kind of explain how the technology works, when we typically view an organization, we look at the standard org charts or how the teams are split up. But the reality is that there's a really complex interwoven web of personal and business relationships which impact influence and inclusion across an organization. So what a network analysis does is it measures and visually maps out these relationships to show how they impact things like trust and knowledge sharing and mentorship and career pathing and work culture. And when we cross-reference that with employee demographic data, that reveals the true picture about the biases that are in an organization.
And how do you do that mapping?
It is done through a really simple 6-question survey. So it usually takes less than 2 minutes of an employee's time. And we're asking questions like, who is a person that you go to when you need to make sure you understand your role on a project, or questions that are about the relationships that they have. The real power of the analysis comes when we're able to draw all those relationships across an organization and then overlay that with some machine learning.
Another way to phrase that, and I really love what I found this in my research about your company, is you uncover the influencers in an organization, and those are kind of, and we all know who they are, but they're not really necessarily on an org chart that way. So tell me more about those influencers and how you utilize them.
Yeah, so we typically map into people that are islands and people that are nodes. What I mean by that is people that sit on the periphery of your network. So someone that may not have access to strong mentors or that may not be plugged into the knowledge sharing network of the organization. And those are people that are at risk for issues like burnout, turnover, performance issues. The opposite of that is people that are at the center of your networks, those that are having a play in all of the trust building relationships in your organization, who are having an impact on the work culture that employees are experiencing on a day-to-day. And our goal is to bring in those people that are on the outskirts closer into the network so they feel more integrated into the organization culture. And those influencers, the ones who are having the most ability to touch everyone, empower them to actually make change in the organization rather than having this informal role where they're touching all the different parts. Make sure that they have the right personal coaching, that they have the right tools and resources to make an impact with the employees that they're having interactions with.
Okay, so let's talk about how that actually happens. So you utilize a chatbot that you call Kim, that you actually call an empathetic chatbot. And Kim interacts with employees in various ways and helps make this happen. So let's go into how that actually happens.
Yep. So this is typically the second part of our 3-step process. Once we've run a network analysis and kind of identify the biases in organization and who can make a difference about them, then we engage at scale with Kim, as you mentioned, our empathetic AI chatbot. So Kim is an always available resource for employees to voice their needs. She intelligently deep dives to the root issues that employees are facing. She's able to crowdsource solutions and route employees to the right resources. So to put that more into reality, after we understand the high-level issues in organization, our next step is to understand what are the day-to-day issues that our employee is facing. So network analysis could reveal to me that our mentorship network is weak for my female engineers on West Coast offices. They may have only one strong mentor that they're going to, which is an indicator for slow career growth and for potential turnover. Ideally, we'd be able to have one-on-one conversations with every single employee and understand the specifics of what they're facing and the specific resources that that employee might need. Unfortunately, that's impossible at large-scale organizations, and that's where Kim comes in. So Kim is able to have one-on-one conversations at scale to understand employee needs and intelligently respond. So she uses a combination of natural language AI, emotional analysis, topic extraction to create very organic conversational experiences. And for example, in this case where employees may not have access to the right mentor network, Kim could go in and give suggestions on here's employee resources on a counseling program, or here is a LMS course that might help you to empower yourself for your scenario in terms of wanting to go up in your career. Essentially what she can do is understand the employee issues that are taking place on the ground for each specific employee, and then give them the specific resolution to their issues in real time.
How does Kim get that information?
So that is something that we load up at the beginning. And usually once we run a network analysis, we understand the high level of the issues. So we'll know, okay, there's an issue with the trust network for this demographic of employees in this geography. And that means that these are the kinds of solutions that we're going to want to be able to recommend in real time. We'll load all that data into Kim. And then when she goes and has those conversations, she'll make those recommendations based off of the topic analysis and natural language processing.
And where does Kim live? Is that inside your email, Slack? How do these conversations take place?
So Kim lives wherever employees are already working. The idea is to not break their flow at all. So if you use Microsoft Teams at your organization, that's where Kim is. If you use Slack, that's where Kim is. She can be on email, SMS, she can even live on your intranet. The idea is the interaction with Kim shouldn't feel any different than a DM with a coworker.
So give me a couple of examples of conversations that Kim might have with an employee.
Yep. So let's say we found some issues with decision-making influence. So Kim might reach out to employees that we see are kind of sitting on the edge of a knowledge sharing network and understand, okay, do you have the right opportunities and the right access to make sure that your ideas are heard? If it turns out that that employee doesn't have it, then Kim will actually try to understand, okay, what are some of the things that you wish your leadership was listening to? So we'll immediately start crowdsourcing for suggested improvements from employees in real time. And then we may also dive in to understand in what way do you not have the right access? Is it because no one is asking? Is it because you don't feel confident speaking up in group settings? So in scenarios like that, we might route someone to, hey, we're going to let your management know these are some of the ideas that you wish had more focus or attention on them. But also, here is a course on becoming more confident speaking up in large group settings that can help you to empower yourself in the meantime.
Okay, psychological safety is a big topic. And so this leads directly to, what if an employee doesn't trust Kim?
Yep, that's a great question. So we put a lot of effort into building trust with employees. So of course, any of the information that employees share in conversations with Kim are completely anonymous. The data is only ever reported in aggregate. But more important than anonymity is transparency. So we're very clear every time Kim is having a conversation, who is on the other end that's going to be able to read what you're sharing. So what that might mean is maybe Kim is having a conversation to understand dynamics with a specific leader. And that employee may not feel comfortable sharing their feedback about that leader if that leader is going to be reading it on the other end. But what we've done in that case by letting them know is we've maintained trust in the process as a whole. So the next time Kim reaches out and to have a conversation about career growth, then the employee understands, okay, maybe this is escalating to someone that I feel more comfortable with. I'm going to go ahead and share my thoughts, rather than you have your standard data collecting experiences where if an employee has one bad experience, then you're done. You're never going to get them back again and trying to understand their needs.
Yeah, that's It's just so huge right now. So I know that everyone's afraid to even answer, even when you tell them it's anonymous and everything, they're still afraid to answer, and I totally understand. But I would think also that the organization would want to move that ahead, because I mean, what's the number one reason people leave organizations, right? Bad managers. So
Yep.
they want that data. Okay, so
And you actually hit on a really important point, which I know Anisa's got a lot of thoughts on. So a big part of the trust building exercise is employees have to feel that they're not speaking into a black box. So if they're doing the emotional labor of telling you about their needs, they need to see that something is being done about them. So when possible, we try to solve those things in real time. Unfortunately, not all issues are transactional and can be solved by a chatbot. Many of them require expert intervention or action from leaders. And that's where the third step of our process comes in, which is to solve, where people leaders have access to our expert diversity, equity, inclusion consultants for education, training, coaching. And I'll let Anisa speak a little bit more on that.
Thank you, Vivek. I think part of what we really wanted to make sure happened during all this is there's a lot of data gathering HR tech out there. There's surveys and there's, workforce dashboards that give managers information, right? Engagement surveys, HR surveys, culture surveys, you get the idea. What I have observed, though, in the many years in this business is it's not enough to have the data. You got to know what to do with the data. And you also need to know how to take action quickly. We're all done with being asked a year ago whether or not we're happy with our manager. Oh, we heard 13 months ago that we're all over it, right? So I think what the third step in LeanDEI makes really critical is it increases issue to action resolution by 18x. Meaning when the data comes in, not only is it available in a dashboard, ooh, we've got an issue over here in the sales department. Folks are, they're turning over, but also they're complaining about two of these managers. Now, instead of saying, oh, our whole unit, everyone needs management training, everyone needs coaching, everyone needs to attend this DEI session. And sometimes that's the right approach. But what if you could just target with the right solution and the right amount of coaching or the right amount of training, just the units that actually need assistance. And then at the same time, what if your managers had access to these DEI experts? Hey, I didn't know that I had an issue, but I'm sensing some unrest, and Kim has pulled up some data that confirms it for me. What do I do with this? And all too often, especially when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we see leaders who didn't know there was an issue at all, or don't know how to address the issue, so they do nothing, or the issue is so incredibly controversial and so charging that we have leaders who only want their employment law specialist to address it. And it's just not an issue you can address at that level and have folks feel like it's a sincere, that their concerns are sincerely listened to and heard. So the micro consulting or the coaching or the training is essentially on call, and a portion of it comes with the program. So you never have to say, I don't know what to do with this data, so I'm going to sit on it until next year. It allows an organization to be fast and take a right-sized approach to the solution.
I would think that would call for people to have a willingness to be self-aware or become more self-aware, which is a big battle for any organization like yours trying to solve these kinds of issues. So how do you tackle that kind of maybe perhaps unwillingness at different levels, right? To have that self-awareness?
Completely accurate assumption and observation there. What we know is that the data is there. So with the program, there's going to be a certain number of, hey, let's meet. I'll walk you through the data. And as a diversity, equity, inclusion expert, I want to just point out the points of concern, the areas in which you're doing really well. And there's no reason to force them to go through conversation on critical race theory or whatever it is that the folks on the ground are concerned about. But this team over here needs some assistance. And so because the consultant is saying, listen, it's your choice, but here's where I see the red flags in your data. And here's how other organizations are solving those concerns. And we can do this in a very small, appropriate way so that you're not disrupting the flow of work or taking everyone off site or any other pieces. And then on top of that, if we can identify, as we did in step one, those champions of change, those folks that are already doing the work of supporting a culture shift and are having the conversations, they are already mentoring folks, so to speak. If we can support them in knowing how to have the conversations or when to escalate or when not to escalate, or how to simply be a mentor or a listener or a coach, then you've got an entire team of folks on the ground that you didn't have to hire separately to actually support the culture evolution, so to speak.
How does that coaching or consulting get triggered?
Sure. So there's a retainer that comes with the program. And we do that because it's really essential, not just to give a person the data and hope that they look at it. It's like every single month, we're going to show you the report, and we're also going to support you in a very brief conversation around what we see and give you an opportunity to then use that coaching opportunity, that micro consulting opportunity, to be strategic about your approach. Our experts are very skilled and highly experienced in the strategy around HR, but also around DEI and culture change. And so it's part of the program. Let's talk about the strategy here. Let's talk about the best practices. What do you already have that your organization is using that we can leverage more or communicate better or invite more people to participate in? You already have a learning management system. It's got everything on harassment. It doesn't have anything on just active listening for managers in times of crisis. So we can make suggestions based on what's already working in the company. And that gets triggered during these micro sessions that are actually included as part of the program.
That's interesting, because what it made me think of was there's always that training of what not to do, right? But there's not always training of what to do. And so it's not, even if you are, one of those influencers or whatever, sometimes you don't actually know what the right thing is. I think that's where a lot of people actually probably miss the boat or miss an opportunity, is you're so afraid to do the wrong thing. But something's going on, but you don't actually know what the right thing to do is. And so you do nothing, which might even be worse. I don't know. And also then there's that social impact, right, of things that might be like technically okay in our handbooks and everything. It's okay to do these things or be this way, but it's not really socially okay. So does this help with that too? Kind of helping people navigate that?
100%. There's the concept around the technology was super exciting. But then as Vivek and I started really brainstorming around the possibilities, we just realized how many technology companies are out there that wish their data actually had a cultural impact, right? Yeah. Wish that they could talk to the managers and say, I can help you interpret what your best practice or best next step is. And that therein lies the trouble. There's data all over the place. But the kind of data that you're getting now, because of the artificial intelligence and the conversational intelligence, combined with experts on call, they can help you and say, look, yes, you could have a supervisor one-on-one training and go back to square one. But the truth is only 10% of your workforce is actually having a challenge with a certain number of managers. How about we just start there? Yeah. Or actually, this is systemic and it's top down. So you guys get to choose, but if we were making a recommendation, we probably would start with your executive team aligning the strategy, top up, top down, or down, bottom up, and vice versa. And so that review allows us to make recommendations so that there's never a time where it's like, I have no idea what to do, so I just can't do anything.
Yeah, definitely. Have you guys had the experience yet? It might be that you're too new, where kind of have this old school thinking. People are like, yeah, whatever, because the whole idea of employees getting to choose. I mean, I grew up with my parents saying, hey, what do you mean loving your job? Like, you should just be grateful to have a job and, shut your mouth, go to work, blah, blah, blah. And now tables have turned big time. And it takes a while, right, for that to trickle all the way up. So have you seen potential customers or people you researched with come back and go like, oh, this really has changed. We can't do this anymore?
100%. And Vivek, I know you've got lots of case studies and experience that you can speak to this, but one of the fastest outcomes that's really important to clients is this communication with Kim allows organizations to quickly see, do we have a problem? We heard we had a problem, but can we verify that? Or are we really doing as good as we think we are? And what bubbles to the surface is this, oh, we actually are about to have a mass exodus. We're going to have the Burger King sign that says, sorry, we all quit. And we could have seen it coming, but we didn't. When employees start to have that conversation with Kim, all it takes is there's a tripping point, right? Where you have this threshold of, this is not just a small few. We got an issue here, and now you can immediately resolve it. That, I believe, really progressive, smart companies are going to be looking to have more conversations with their employees through Kim and LeanDEI, and we have some comparable programs that are outside of the DEI, vertical, for example. But the whole purpose being, we need to look at the fact that there is a war for talent in HR. We need to look at the fact that employees of today are not your employees of yesterday, and they don't have to stick around if they're unsatisfied. And having those conversations at scale means that you can get ahead of the problem, not be looking behind going, oh, maybe we should have offered more training or mentoring or a resource. You get it.
Got it.
Yeah. Piggybacking on that a little bit, what we find a lot is these days, there are many more people in decision-making roles that truly care about the employee experience and are very passionate about it. They may not always have 100% support from their senior leadership, but that's where we can help arm these very passionate operational leaders with the right data to show their leadership why what they're passionate about makes sense to take action on. A big benefit of our program is, as Anisa mentioned earlier, we have really, really rapid issue to action cycles. What that means is organizations that may have been spending 1.5 to 2-year-long cycles to understand if the training and resources that they're investing in have an impact, we're able to bring that down typically to 2 weeks to start to see early indicators of impact. And within 6 months, we'll have identifications of actual structural and strategic change within the organization. So because we have the combination of being very, very data focused, but also very specifically focused with our actions, it's a lot easier to make that case to senior leadership of why this is something that has bottom line impact.
I love that. So what's the most misunderstood part of your product?
That is a good question. So we do a lot of we do a lot of new things in terms of our process and our technology. But I think the most misunderstood part is that it's just a AI or technology-based solution. Our really critical differentiator is that expert humans are involved in every step of the process. The role of the technology is just to scale that expertise to a whole organization. So while you're gonna get pretty cutting edge machine learning and AI-based analysis, the real differentiator is we have the people that know how to take that data and make an impact on an organization.
And what's the biggest challenge you faced so far?
I think that we're selling a totally new approach with a new technology. So there can be some more education up front. And as you kind of alluded to earlier, we generally do best with people that are a little bit more forward thinking already. We're kind of working on doing regular webinars, creating content, offering free services to introduce people to what we do and demonstrate what we believe is the best way to build really equitable organizations.
What inspires both of you? Oh, I'm sorry, Anisa, you had
just gonna real quickly add a couple of things. One, there's this idea that chatbots are, you go online to cancel a subscription. They're like, here's your FAQ. Here's, they can't really interact. And this is a super sophisticated experience, with organizational psychologists supporting the conversations and the way that that tree flows. So it is much more conversational, like talking to a real person, than the average customer experience chatbot, for example. That's one thing. The other thing is that because some of the micro coaching and micro consulting is included, there's this idea that, oh, it didn't cost us a lot, so must not be worth it. And that's just not true. These are certified experts, many of whom have advanced degrees and thousands of hours of training and coaching experience. And we've been able to do that because of the folks that we've partnered with. We have over 500 experts all around the globe that are passionate about this topic, and they are in their own right experts that are contributing to this end-to-end solution. So those are two of the things that sometimes get confusing for people who hear about it and are worried. What kind of experts are we talking about here?
Real, actual experts.
Real experts. That's right.
Okay. What inspires each of you?
For me, it's a broader cultural change that we're seeing, both in the workplace and just in society as a whole. I mean, the reason why we're even able to launch LeanDEI is because of the change that we've seen in culture, and that there are, as I mentioned, people in decision-making positions that truly care about diversity and inclusion and are willing to put money where their mouth is. And seeing that continuing cultural change and able to be a part of it in some small way is what's very motivating for me.
I will just agree. This is the culture shift that I believe we're supporting is long overdue. And whenever I think about it, I can tear up simply because I'm so passionate about it. But talking about it enough isn't enough to support the kind of change that we need. And organizations are ready to move forward in a progressive way towards cultivating a culture of respect for differences and truly having an equitable, fair workplace. But the social issues that prevent organizations from doing that are real and they're tough. And so having a solution beyond, hey, let's go to a training, about this is from my personal perspective, and I recognize I'm biased because I believe in what we do, is going to require a combination of the high tech with high touch to get it done. And I can wake up in the morning knowing, if something happened today, I know that this is something that made a difference in the world, and I can get pretty excited and passionate about that.
Very good. So I want to know about your biggest failure today, but I don't really care so much about that as what you learned from it. What was the lesson, and what would you do differently, or how did you overcome it?
So I can maybe start from the technology side. When we initially created our conversational AI Kim, in the very early days, it was really just our team sitting behind a keyboard pretending to be Kim, because we were testing out what does it look like if you have true 100% human intelligence behind the scenes. Can we actually do the job that we want to do? And we saw great results from that. Then we had to eventually launch the technology, and that was really like a sobering moment to go from these interactions that we saw be so successful into like a very early stage alpha technology that people just did not jive with in the same way. And there's a lot of features in Kim today that we added from that early time because we understood how people start to interact with these chat-based technologies. It's something that's becoming more and more ubiquitous in different parts of life. We're kind of bringing it into the employee experience space, but people have certain ways of communication. So you wouldn't believe the amount of times that people ask Kim to marry them or flirt with her. So those are actually things that she's capable of like addressing in a polite way and then moving on. So the early days of the conversational AI were a large learning curve for us. And what we ended up doing is just iterating as quickly as possible. So in about 6 months, we went from seeing like 20-30% response rates and chatting with the bot to today over 80%.
Excellent.
Wow. Anisa, do you have anything to add or should I move on?
Just for me, it's all about partnering with the experts, because the concept for me around culture shift and offering just the right size solution just when you need it through technology. We spent a lot of money 10 plus years ago building something only for me to realize I should stay in my lane. I'm really good at the coaching and training. I just needed a Vivek. And so when Vivek and I met, I learned, you partner with the best, and what you end up creating is a truly remarkable experience and product. And so that was a pretty good learning experience. Now we have the best. It just took us a long way to get here.
All right, what gets each of you up in the morning?
I think it's what we both touched on earlier, which is we see this larger cultural change that's happening, and the fact that we get to play a role in it. That's something that's very inspiring to me. And when I get up knowing that the work that I'm doing is something that I feel is going to have lasting and important impact, that's what motivates me to keep going.
Ditto. Agreed. 100%.
What's a question that you wish people would ask you that they don't?
I think, what is a DEI program actually supposed to accomplish? So one of kind of the surprising things in launching LeanDEI is learning how nascent DEI really is for most organizations. So organizations both from like SMBs to enterprises are really new to the DEI journey, and there's not a clear defined process or methodology, which is why we take a very defined structured approach with LeanDEI. But we wish people ask more often, like, what is a DEI program actually supposed to accomplish? We see a lot of people are like, I care about this a lot, so we need to do an anti-racism training. Like, there's not a next step that ties into like what's the goal that they're trying to accomplish. So we look really at making change on 4 levels. We help employees to engage with their communities, have a direct line of communication to escalate critical issues to leaders. We help people leaders to develop best-in-class leadership, team building, decision-making skills. We help executives to understand how inclusion is playing out in the workplace so that they can actually make the right strategic decisions. We help organizations as a whole ensure lasting change by helping them leverage their existing resources and enabling the nascent champions of change that they have in their organization. And kind of by focusing on those 4 large change drivers, it helps understand why these programs actually matter. And it also helps in convincing senior leadership why DEI programs are something that we should be investing in.
What else do you want people to know about LeanDEI?
For me, I think it's really important to know that we understand that technology has to be simple and it has to be supported for it to work in any organization. And so the lift is light for organizations who want a solution to do more than just throw a training at it. If they're really looking to retain employees, engage employees, and cultivate a culture of respect across diversity, then it's going to take all 3 of these. Whether they use our solution or not, it's going to take who's at risk. It's going to take, let's have conversations, let's shine some light on what's really going on in our organization, and then it's going to be, and let's quickly address the issues that need to be resolved. And that doesn't have to be a complicated process. And one of the things that I think Vivek and I have done really well is making it easy from beginning to end. It's all about the client. Nothing is out of the box. Oh, here's the key, we're out of here. It's all bespoke, and every piece of it must fit the culture, or we know we're not going to be able to fulfill the goals.
So what's your favorite way for people to get a hold of you?
Our website is LeanDEI.com, and there is also a benchmark, a DEI benchmark that a lot of clients tell us was really helpful. And they walk through the process of asking, and we ask questions, they answer it on the form. And at the end, they get a score compared to other organizations. Where do they fall in the pursuit towards a diverse, equitable, inclusive culture? And it gives them a bit of a roadmap. What do I need to pay attention to? We also have some pilot opportunities. We've been lucky enough to have a kind benefactor who is supporting us in a certain number of engagements, which means organizations that are really looking to pilot an approach, we have a means of supporting that without them having to come out of pocket for the entire investment if they fit certain criteria. That's not on the website, but they can go to the website and contact us. They can also, is it consult@leandei.com? That's the best, Vivek? Yeah, so consult@leandei.com or our website.
I love that idea of an organization being able to benchmark themselves against other organizations and find out where they stand. That could be eye-opening for a lot of people. That's really, really a good idea. All right, well, it's been a pleasure chatting with both of you today and learning more about LeanDEI. I am super excited to keep in touch with you and see where you go. I encourage people to connect with you and find out more about how you can help them. Thanks.
Thank you,
Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.